Welcome to the Dynasty Academy. Michael Washington. Mark is being a pompous ass before we came on air, and Mark Ongst.
I mean, you are. I'm not. I mean, you are.
Eli Manuel.
Why would you draft a wide receiver, too?
Eli, you can cut this out.
You could leave it in, too.
Restart.
Kyler Murray has a fantastic arm. It's just the decision-making for him, for me. Michael Vick just made better decisions, I feel like, overall.
Makes sense. I said 1 or 2 inches, growing 1 or 2 inches, and you're like...
And he's still going...
I have leagues on too many apps. I don't know what to follow.
After a week off, we are back here at Dynasty Academy. Class is now in session. This is episode 7 here on the Shady Sports Network. I'm Michael Washington with Mark Ongst, as always, I guess. No Eli Manuel again tonight. Hopefully his absence will be able to grace us with his presence here in the near future. Shout out to him. We're missing you here on the show, my man, and hopefully everything's good with you. Mark, not much to really discuss, to really talk about here other than free agency. Free agency frenzy has absolutely hit, and it
Wild this year.
It was. I feel like it was really odd this year. Like it wasn't really like a normal feel for a free agency. There was a lot of moves that you kind of go, wait, what? What happened? And then you're like, oh, okay. And then I don't know, man.
Really? Well, I mean,
yeah, like.
Give me one. What one kind of gave you that? Because I don't know that I felt that way.
So I was a little bit shocked by the Josh Jacobs signing in Green Bay, primarily because you're going from the outside. You're going outside the organization and outside the play system to bring in a running back who he's younger and
Yes.
than a guy that has been consistently good for you in that system over the last few years. Now, I will say I believe he is cheaper than what Aaron Jones was on the roster as well. So I think that probably played a factor into it. But that took me a little bit for a surprise. I was not really expecting that from Green Bay, primarily because of how steady Aaron Jones has been. But more of the other odd stuff is more of the stuff away from the fantasy aspect of it overall. But like running backs, some wide receivers, like a lot of wide receivers haven't signed yet, man. Like
that. I mean, that is odd to me. I'll give you that. But I also understand it, and I understand. I think why the running backs went so fast, because the running back draft doesn't look as plentiful as it does most years, and the wide receiver class looks robust compared to even some of the best years at this point. So I feel like it's a flip flop of last year where wide receivers went crazy, running backs didn't get much, and it's just the way of the draft. I don't know. I didn't look at too many moves and go, that's odd. I looked at a lot of moves and went, you went from division rival to division rival.
Yeah, it happened a lot.
And it happened a lot. I was like, I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah. Shout out to Sam. Sam, thank you for joining us, my man. As always, thank you again for giving us a platform for our show, and we appreciate everything that you do here at the Shady Sports as well. We're going to focus primarily on the running backs tonight. There was a lot of running back movement. It was something that, like you said, we don't really see a lot of. It could be because the running back class doesn't look as plentiful, though I honestly think that this running back class doesn't have any has maybe one, maybe 2 true superstar capable guys in it. But I think there's a lot of guys in this that could be really good overall and provide some good years. The first signing, obviously, we'll start with the first one that was announced, was the Saquon Barkley. We'll come back and circle back on Josh Jacobs with Green Bay in a little bit. But Saquon Barkley, in the early tampering period and within 10 minutes of it opening up, it was revealed that he was signed to Philadelphia for a massive contract for a running back. And honestly, this was the one move that I'm not sure if it necessarily made Philadelphia better. I like the idea of Saquon in this offense, and from a fantasy standpoint, it has the potential to be really explosive, right? But I don't like that he's with a running back that's a quarterback that's used as a running back in, I don't want to say a large capacity, but a large enough capacity compared to where Barkley has had with Daniel Jones in New York. And that kind of concerns me a little bit. Now, DeAndre Swift had a fantastic year in this offense last year. I mean, he played really well in this offense. This offense was kind of sputtered down the stretch, but he still was a bright spot. So that's good news. And the idea of a running quarterback or a quarterback that can run usually opens things up for the running backs. But I don't feel that that is Saquon Barkley's game as much. I could be wrong, and this could be a fantastic signing, and this could end up being Barkley's, heyday for the next 3 or 4 years. But this was the one move that I haven't quite pieced together yet that I'm like either really excited about or it's going to end up blowing up in people's faces.
Well, it's similar. Your thinking, I feel like, it's similar to the Cam Newton CMC pairing at the time, because everybody looked at Cam and said, "Okay, you're not a check down guy. Most of the time, if you're gonna check it down, that's you running. That's your check down
Right.
move." I don't know that Jalen is as much of that, but I feel like he is closer to Cam in that sense. So I can understand your thoughts there, because let's remember, Saquon's best year was with Eli Manning, who couldn't
Right.
move outside of 2 feet to his left or right.
And he
So
checked down all the time, and Barkley caught like a ton of passes that year.
it was the Najee Harris effect with Ben Roethlisberger. Same thing.
Right.
So I get that side of it for Saquon for sure. He's better than DeAndre Swift, at least a little bit. My thing is when you look at the two deals, what Swift got with Chicago and what Saquon, it's like $14 million difference.
Yeah.
So like you probably could have had Swift and almost probably had the same thing.
Yeah.
I did see though that this year it's a lower number, so they obviously backloaded. So this is one of those things where it's like, okay, we know what we have around us right now, and we're going for it. So this is the New Orleans Saints method of trying to win a title, I think. So if it works, you're happy. It's the Rams. It's what the Bucks did with Brady. You got the title. You're happy. Now they didn't trade draft picks the way the Rams did, but same idea. If you don't win, like the Saints, you're going to be left in a couple years just completely devoid of having young talent to backfill the roster. So we'll see. I mean, but that's what this move is. They went, we think we can win now, and we're going all in. Because
go ahead and finish your thought, but it just
you could have brought Swift back for you, even if you didn't want him for 3 years, probably 2 years and almost the same amount of money you gave Barkley on a year-to-year basis and gotten similar production. Again, I do think Saquon is a better running back than DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift is no slouch of a running back. I don't know what happened, if it was just because of the injury, because he got traded. He never really worked out with Detroit, but he was always thought of highly as a top running back until last year, when he probably had his best season then, and nobody cared.
Yeah. For me, it's more Philadelphia as a whole for a team from an NFL perspective, which obviously real life NFL obviously affects fantasy because that's what it is. I don't feel that they got better on the offensive line. I feel like they got worse. Obviously, Jason Kelce retiring does not help. The rest of the guys that are coming back, Lane Johnson's another year older. I don't really feel that they tackled the spots or the areas that were a necessity. They did sign Landon Dickerson to the biggest contract for offensive guard, I believe, in the history of the NFL, which was a huge signing. But You signed Barkley for that deal, even if you backloaded it. You signed Landon Dickinson for that deal. You had the Jalen Hurts contract from last year. You paid A.J. Brown when you traded for him. Like, what are you going to get for the pieces to patchwork this offensive line enough to make Saquon Barkley back to that running back one capable guy? Or is it just going to be very similar to what DeAndre Swift does in Chicago?
Well, that's the thing. This year for the cap number that between Devontae, Saquon, Jalen, and Brown, it's not actually that bad for all of them.
Correct, but they didn't do anything with the offensive line, though, is what I'm saying.
No, but I'm saying their number collectively is less than Daniel Jones's for the Giants.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just because that was a contract that probably had no reason being signed at all.
I get what they're doing and what they're trying to do. I'm of agreement with you. You brought back your two guys that from your on your team, but what they do otherwise, I mean, center is going to be the biggest thing. You haven't signed anybody,
right? Exactly.
So, are you trying to get Jackson Powers Johnson in the draft at this point? Is that your ultimate goal? You're going to have to trade up to do that
far. Well, you're going to have to
trade up
to
do it.
Yeah.
So if that's your ultimate goal, you're trying to move up. So you're going to sacrifice some pieces. So I agree. You at the skill positions, you're set. You have Dallas Goedert. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devonta Smith. You brought Devontae Parker in to be your 3-4 wide receiver, which is fine. He's not a terrible wide receiver. He's no worse than Quez Watkins and 45-year-old Julio Jones.
We'll talk about this wide receiver 3 thing in the NFL and whatnot, but I think that wide receiver 3 on a team is literally the most overrated position in football. I said
right, but I'm saying Devontae Parker isn't a terrible guy to bring in to be your wide receiver.
But I understand that. But I'm just saying that at wide receiver 3, though, the money that gets paid to wide receiver 3s and the production that you get in return is not worth it, in my opinion, in the NFL. But whatever. I understand mismatches and all that crap, but whatever. I don't think it's really worth it.
He only got $4 million. It wasn't like they gave him a ton of money.
Oh, I'm not saying the Devontae Parker thing. I'm just saying the wide receiver 3 thing in general, like as far as that's concerned. But that's a different story for a different day, different discussion, whatever else. But I just my question, my concern, Mark, is though with Barkley being in this offense is it's Kellen Moore. Right. We know that Kellen Moore has had some good years with Ezekiel Elliott, but he kind of inherited that offense and and Tony Pollard, Dak is more of a check down guy, or was, and whatnot. But was that the system or was that totally Tony Pollard's skill set, etc. But he went to the Chargers with Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler became completely irrelevant. Now, you could blame that on Eckler, but none of the running backs in that offense were relevant. So it's not like you could just say it was Eckler. Was that entire room was basically obsolete. Is that a concern for this marriage with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator and Saquon Barkley there? Or is it just going to be like talent and the talent around him is just going to prevail regardless of coaching? That's my concern. And that's just because Barkley has had injury history. He has, the same concerns you could say about DeAndre Swift, you could say about Barkley.
Yep.
And the amount that you're paying for this guy, how long is his leash going to be if he doesn't come in there and light the scoreboard up right away? And is this the offense that I think, or the right situation that can lead him back to an RB1 status in fantasy football? That's my other question.
I would say, I think yes, it 100% could give him a top 5 finish possibility. If this offense is working right, it's going to score points. And the tush push probably won't see as much because of Kelsey being gone. Because let's be honest, he's one of the biggest reasons you do it. And we know how good Saquon can be in those goal lines. He's a big guy. That's probably the biggest difference between him and Swift is Saquon is just built better than DeAndre Swift was. But yes, I mean, let's be real. Hurts has injury history. Barkley has injury history. Goddard has injury history. Brown and Smith really don't have too much of an injury history for themselves. So you have there, but if you're not fixing the O line through the draft or whatever in free agency or trades, are you going to score enough points to keep up when it matters? We both have Saquon at 6 when we ranked him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't think it moves him up though. I don't think
Does it drop him?
I don't think it drops him though, and primarily I don't think it drops Barkley because the overall appeal of him being in this Philadelphia offense, I think, should keep him up near that 5 range. That 6 to 7 range. Like if I dropped him, it'd be like one spot primarily. But I almost get the feeling of the hype surrounding him in Philadelphia as the same type of hype that I got from Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to Kansas City. Now,
No.
No, hold on though. I don't mean that in the sense that Barkley is Clyde Edwards-Helaire because Barkley's much better and proven. The hype though behind of the draft, like you remember CEH, we had him ranked in the rookie that year. I think you and I had him ranked outside the top 5. I think it was outside the top 5. I think we both had him 6 that year.
At running back, I don't think so. I think he was
4 he was
or 5.
Either 5 or 6.
It was the end of the group of them that were the main guys.
Right, and I think most of the people that did that as well ended up shooting him up the board when he was the first running back taken, and you and I were the only ones that really were like, yeah, well, we'll leave him right where he is. So I get the same sense though that people are like already putting Barkley in a sense of, now mind you, this is a second contract running back, which is something that we have seen before, and people are already putting him in that, solidifying him in that RB1 spot, and I think that that's a concern because we still don't know what this is, because A, new system, B, new team, et cetera, which we've seen people fail before that are super talented. I mean, I could think of LaDainian Tomlinson in New York, for instance. Yeah. And Sam, you are the Eagles fan? So this is very true that you could see Dickerson move to center. Absolutely, he did. He does have some experience there, and draft a player at guard. That's very possible as well, for sure. The guards will definitely fall to you, so you won't have to trade up for Powers at all. So that's just where I'm at with Barkley. I don't know if I would buy because his price tag is
his price is going to go up. Yeah. But if you have him, I'd sell.
But if I had him, I would probably sell and do my best to, I don't know. I'm a little more of like, I'm going to be a little more realistic with my value, but try to be as realistic as possible so you can get something for him in case he does bomb out.
No, if I'm selling, I'm going for top dollar, hoping somebody's buying this hype. If nobody buys, you keep them and you write out what you get, or you wait for a few games if he goes red hot. You sell for. You have Walker, Etienne, and James Cook right behind him. Those are the 3 right behind him. Any of them moving ahead for you?
No, nothing really changed for
stays
them.
Where he is.
Yeah, he stays at 6.
Because I know he's not moving ahead of anybody else. None of the people you had ahead of them were in any jeopardy of their job being taken in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. So
I wouldn't drop Barkley one spot, even though I do like what Seattle has done so far with their overall free agency for the most part. So
it's not like it's just like
right. It didn't change enough for me to move Walker ahead of him. So I'd leave him at 6 right now. Next big signing, we'll go to the Josh Jacobs signing in Green Bay, because I would say that's probably one of the second biggest name on this list that got moved or that signed in free agency.
4 years.
4-year deal, second contract running back. He was tagged last year, so technically you could say third contract, even though that doesn't count. Yeah.
This is a
but
second contract.
Second contract, yeah. In Green Bay, they signed him to the deal. Then they turned around and cut Aaron Jones. And they were like, peace out, Aaron Jones. This was the one, I said at the top of the show, this was the one move that was kind of just odd to me because I don't think it was a dire position of need for Green Bay. Now, we did mention that it was probably cheaper, and he is younger than Aaron Jones. So
3 years.
Yeah, he's 3 years younger than Aaron Jones. So that does make a difference, especially at the running back position.
And they tried to restructure Jones and couldn't get it done. So I think that played into it also.
Yeah. And we did just hear today that AJ Dillon does plan on resigning in there, so that does give them a little bit of a, solid 1-2 punch to take something off of Jacobs, because otherwise it was just Emmanuel Wilson otherwise. So unless they drafted somebody.
We saw how valuable Jones was to them in their playoff win against Dallas and their should have win against San Francisco. So maybe not a need, but I think a realization that, and it's not honestly that crazy right now when you're Green Bay, when you know what you're doing at wide receiver is not paying anybody at the moment. You know you don't have to for a couple of years.
Right.
Your quarterback just re-signed on a pretty friendly deal because he had not played and knew he had to do something, but he didn't know what he was going to be. You didn't know what he was going to be, so you met in the middle, which is great. So you have a little time to do this. So this, I think, is just let's get a younger guy who Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs are probably actually very similar style running backs.
Yeah,
to begin with. So you get maybe a guy with a little less tread on the tires, and you hopefully don't lose a step. That's the idea to me. And it is probably less money because if you were trying to restructure and couldn't get it done, you're not going to then go sign this guy for a ton more money when you could have just kept Aaron Jones. So
right, and that's probably the biggest thing was obviously money and get a younger guy. It just I'm just more surprised that Jacobs didn't re-sign with the Raiders.
You're surprised because Green Bay spent money on an outside free agent. That's why you're surprised. They don't do that.
Too. They don't do that. That's true too.
Julius Peppers might have been the only guy they've ever spent money on that didn't start their career in Green Bay.
Well, I mean, they did spend money on the two pass rushers, the two Smith boys.
I thought they were drafted by them.
No, Preston Smith was in Washington first, and they brought him in.
So outside of defensive end, they don't ever spend money on anybody.
And Zadarius Smith came from Baltimore, so they ravaged the DMV. They were just like,
out of defensive end, they don't spend money on anybody. But that's why you're surprised. I mean, and really that is because one, it was so quickly done. Like it's just not a Green Bay move normally.
Yeah,
but that's normally because they're paying loads of money to quarterbacks with huge egos. They might finally have a guy who doesn't have that for the first time in
ever
30 years. I don't know about before him, but 30 years.
So, with all that being said, this is a move that I actually love, especially in the fantasy realm. And
you didn't have him in your top 16 before.
Well, I did not have him in my top 16 primarily because I kept a lot of the second contract running backs for the most part out.
Mm-hmm.
This very well could possibly put him in a 12 to 16 range, but he's going to outplay wherever I put him. Like that.
Sure,
that's what I'm saying.
You say possible, not a for sure thing that you're going
to. I'm going to have to look at the list and I have to see what's going to happen with the rookies. I can't use free agency because the player's still the player no matter what. If he stayed in the Raiders, I loved him with the Raiders, but it's not that I dislike Jacobs. It's just that from a dynasty perspective, I try to avoid as many second contract running backs as possible. And Jacobs unfortunately falls into that realm. So at this point in time, I avoid him. But it also depends on where his value is in startups. That's the biggest question because does this launch him up in startups? In my opinion, I think a lot of people are going to fall in love with this.
Well, he's going to be the starting running back. So he's going to.
Well, he's going to outproduce. He's going to outproduce probably wherever he gets taken.
Maybe.
Most likely. I think so. I think with this offense, how young the wide receivers are and how good they are.
I say maybe because he might shoot up pretty high.
Oh, well, that's true too. But at the same time, though, too, I mean, this is a second team. The running back switching teams, you don't know what you're going to get. Like,
we are level headed. Others are not.
right. Yeah, for sure.
He may shoot up into that top. People might draft him over ETN and Walker and Rashad White and those guys because they think, and he might outproduce them this year. It's just after this year, and he gets to 27 and he gets to 28. What do you get? But that's all the running backs. But I just, for me, I mean, you had Pacheco at 14. I personally would have to have. I mean, I did, but I'd have to have. At this point, Jacobs probably over him in my rankings if I would had Pacheco ahead of him. I honestly, I don't know that I would move. I had him at 13. I'm not sure if I would move him up because he's right around a group of people with question marks of their own. So I think he's pretty much right where he is. The tier might move down though. So he just missed tier 3. He probably would jump at least into that tier with those guys because it's Walker, White, Javonte, Spears, Cook. That's who I had there, and it just question mark guys.
But don't forget that don't forget though my rankings though don't necessarily reflect where I would take somebody.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your rankings in general. I know drafting them, you're going to draft them higher than some of these guys.
Exactly.
Depending on how you're building
value on somebody, right?
Well, and how your team is being drafted. If you're staying young, you're going to stay young. If you're leaning a little more winish, Jacobs is probably a good guy you can grab. Hopefully, a little further down than guys like Saquon. If you can get Jacobs 5 rounds after where Saquon got drafted.
No, for sure.
That's
Absolutely.
steal.
All day. Steal. All day, every day. Take that across the board. I love the move. I love the player. I love the player with the Raiders. He was a guy that I really, really liked. I like him in Green Bay because I like what they're doing in there. And we saw that Aaron Jones has been successful there. Jacobs is younger. And I think Jacobs provides a little better pass catching ability than Jones.
Probably.
I think Jones early in his career was much better at it than I think he was later in his career. Which is typical. That's typical age.
Aaron Jones compared to Jordan Love type of thing.
Right.
Too. It's one of those things.
I mean, could be any of that across that board, but I do like Jacobs in Green Bay though. That's a good move. I think overall. Now the fallout from that move, and a move that I don't understand, is Aaron Jones signs a 1-year deal with Minnesota. This is the one move out of everything that I probably A, hate, and B, really don't truly understand at all. Not saying that Alexander Mattison's anything, because let's be honest, he really hadn't been for the last few years. But you cut Dalvin Cook for coming off the heels of a really good year. He had a good year the year before. You cut Cook because he was old and expensive. I mean, he signed for 1 year, $6 million with the Jets. I mean, it's not like he couldn't have restructured his contract in some capacity. And then you sign Aaron Jones, who's what, a year younger than him?
They might be the same.
Or they might be the same age. And you don't have a quarterback on roster that's starting. Well, I mean, Sam Darnold's there, but this signing here still screams that Minnesota's either going to bring somebody in the draft, or I don't know.
Aaron Jones is a year older than Dalvin Cook is.
See, and that it makes zero sense. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I don't think that this helps Aaron Jones's stock. I don't think it helps Sam Darnold's stock. The only way that I think that this helps is if Aaron Jones, if a guy like Trey Benson or Jonathan Brooks goes to Minnesota and is able to take a huge chunk of workload away from Aaron Jones, because I don't know what Minnesota's doing as far as the team structure is concerned. And I feel like that's going to affect everybody fantasy-wise, with the exception of maybe Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson. But primarily, I think Justin Jefferson's probably the only one that might be foolproof, because DeAndre Hopkins was foolproof, and we don't know what Hawkinson's going to be without Kurt. So,
I agree.
You
I
know,
think JJ is the only one that you can be confident it doesn't matter in. Hawk is close because I think he was still having a pretty good season once Kirk went down, but then he got injured himself, so it's really hard to know how he would have done. I mean, this to me screamed. Aaron Jones was mad. The Bears had already signed
DeAndre
Swift, so he
Swift.
wasn't going there. The Lions already signed Montgomery and have Gibbs, so he wasn't going there. And he went, "Hey, Minnesota, you don't like Green Bay. I'm not mad at Green Bay. So why don't I just come play with you? And I mean, look how good I was for all these years. And I'll take a $7 million deal." Honestly, it's really the only way you can explain why you would do that. But you did
Yeah.
nothing in free agency to address your biggest need. Now, I get you didn't probably want to give Kirk Cousins 4 years and $180 million and how 100 and whatever was guaranteed after you paid him so much already, and he's coming off an Achilles. And, you probably weren't ready to give that number. And we know Atlanta went out of their way to do this because, they didn't clearly feel like trading for Fields was the best idea, or worried that would cost them more if he did play well, so they'll do this.
Fields is a whole different subject.
But
it's weird.
In Minnesota, you didn't say, well, maybe we'll give Russ a try for $1 million.
Yeah, like
you went Sam Darnold, the guy
or
who's
Zach
been a
Wilson,
great backup for Brock Purdy, has done nothing to do anything for that team. But yeah, great backup, dude. They have to be, in my mind, drafting a quarterback. There is,
and they're going to have to move up to do it, because I think JJ McCarthy I think somebody else might leapfrog him to take JJ McCarthy. So they're going to have to move up. So they're going to have to trade somewhere along the lines during this draft to make a move, because otherwise, and who knows, maybe McCarthy leaps and maybe it's Drake May that falls. I don't know. Who the hell knows with the quarterback situation? But whatever it may be, I feel like there's going to be 4 inside at least the top 8, in my opinion. So there's going to have to be a move somewhere for Minnesota. And I don't know if I like Aaron Jones with a rookie quarterback, let alone Sam Darnold. So, like,
this doesn't
you know
do
what I mean?
much.
Like,
Aaron Jones definitely would fall further, but I mean, I wasn't high on Aaron Jones to begin with anyway. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I got to go out and get Aaron Jones now. If I'm a team who's title contender and the guy who has Aaron Jones is in a rebuild, trying to move him, and you could possibly move even your late like you're going to be probably one of the top 3 teams, and you possibly could get your second for him, I wouldn't be against doing that, because if it gets you the title because you get that running back depth that you need for title runs, I'm not against it.
Yeah, I would say probably a mid-season acquisition.
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, especially, I wouldn't. I mean, it would also depend on whatever,
I'm waiting to see what they do. But if they go in with Ty and Aaron Jones, then.
Sam, I will say this as far as your prediction about Sam Darnold having a borderline purple season and never having an offense like he's had in Minnesota. I will say Sam Darnold has fallen along the same lines as like the Baker Mayfields of the world in the quarterback position, where he never really got a fair shake. He went from unstable organization to unstable organization to landed in San Francisco, showcased his ability or some ability for 3 years or whatever. And now he's getting this opportunity in Minnesota, which is fantastic and fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The problem is, though, is a lot of his knocks and a lot of the issues that he has had comes on the heels of what he did at USC as well. And a lot of that's the turnovers, the ball security. This is,
he was only the backup in San Francisco for 1 year, by the way.
I know, but he played what, like 2 games, maybe, if that, like, or like.
But he wasn't. Wasn't even like he was with them for a few years.
Right.
Only they were.
So I completely understand that, because it's the same argument that I make to give Baker Mayfield an opportunity and chance. It's the same thing that Sam Darnold went through with his career. It's the Alex Smith situation all over again. Exactly. This is his 5th offensive coordinator and head coach and his 4th quarterback coach. Absolutely. Completely understand that. It's just, is his talent, is the talent there, or is it the coaching instability? We'll have to obviously see what happens.
I see ghosts when I play the Patriots thing is a little off-putting for me. With Sam
yes, absolutely. And on top of that, though, I will say, as far as Sam Darnold is concerned, the fact that he's making the change again is another concern as well, because it means that we don't know what he's going to be like. How long is Minnesota going to give him for a leash?
The difference I see between Baker and Sam Darnold is their personality.
Yes.
Baker has always had the confidence that he was a great quarterback and never once, I think, wavered from that, even when all the things were happening around him.
He did when he went to the Rams. The Rams actually talked about that.
Sam crumbled when things got tough.
Yeah. And who knows? And again, Darnold very well may end up surprising everybody, and maybe a Geno Smith situation where he lands 3 years and is the starter there for 3 years, and then they trade for a 5th round pick. No, I'm just that I don't. That's just clearly a thing. I honestly wish well for Darnold, but at this moment, I think it's a hesitation from Aaron Jones' perspective, really from anybody on that offense's perspective, outside of Justin Jefferson, maybe to sell. I don't think I'd be buying, to be honest with you. If he goes in being the starter, I don't think I'm buying. Yeah.
It's that whole offense. If you have Addison, if you have Hawkinson, you hold. You don't move.
Yeah, I don't think you can at this point. I think it's a situation where you won't be able to. Just don't overdraft Aaron Jones. Take him as your RB3 and move on. I mean, you could be comfortable with an RB2 if you take one of the guys in tier 1, but I wouldn't take him, as anything more than RB3 and in hopes whatever on that point. All right, now another I don't want to say surprising move, but an interesting move. Tony Pollard to the Tennessee Titans, primarily because I feel like this is Tyjae Spears.
Yes. Okay, that was my exact thought when they got drafted. I'm like, okay, you two are very similar to each other.
They're so similar to one another, and you're replacing a workhorse between the tackles and with a guy who you already had on roster. So what was the point of that move? That, you know what I mean? And Brian, and the other thing that concerns me here, and it's more for Tyjae Spears than it is for Pollard, only because Pollard came in. Brian Callahan did not use 2 running backs in Cincinnati very much. And I don't know if that was a Callahan thing or if that was a Zach Taylor thing, but they did not use 2 running backs. Chase Brown was on the field here and there. If it wasn't for Chase Brown's big play explosive ability, and
you got to think a year before that, Samaje Perine,
Mixon was
that
hurt.
was because they didn't trust Mixon as much in pass protection.
And Mixon was also
if you remember,
yeah.
Well, no, if you remember the Super Bowl year,
yeah,
Perine was in the game in the Super Bowl on a key down, and everybody's like, "Why do you not have Joe Mixon?" And it's like, well, because he doesn't pass protect as well as this guy does. So I don't know that he really uses 2 backs in a fantasy way,
which is what we're talking about.
but is that why you went with the guy that's the same, so that when you pull him off the field, you're not going any different because you don't plan on using both of them too much? Is it an idea of we don't exactly know what we have with Tyjae Spears because of his knee, because we weren't the team that drafted him, yada, yada, yada. So we'll bring in somebody who is his clone but older and proved he can't be a workhorse last year on a team, and we'll let them fight it out.
I mean, unless this is a right down the middle 50-50 split and they both maximize every single one of their touches, I feel like this just makes it more messy than it does anything else.
It'll just come. One of them will dominate touches. And
this is the reason why I left Tajay. This is why I left Tajay off my top 16, though. This is what I was concerned about.
Yeah, I get it. But
I was just concerned that they were going to bring somebody in, and it was just going to end up being a situation. I was thinking Mixon personally, but I just like Brian Callahan didn't use 2 running backs at Cincinnati in the sense of making them both be able to be fantasy relevant.
yeah, that's what I mean.
So
I don't know that they're going to do it here either. This literally could just be insurance because of Tyjae Spears' team.
it very possibly could be. I mean, Tajay keeps saying that he's healthy. He has a clean bill of slate according to the doctors
Yeah,
there,
he
but
just has a bone-on-bone knee. It's one of those things that
supposedly,
you're fine. You're
supposedly,
fine until you're not. With
Todd
that knee.
Gurley?
That's all it is. Well, Dwayne Wade is a perfect.
Yeah,
He
Dwayne Wade.
played many years with the issue. It's just when it goes, it's going to go. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
He's not a guy you're going to have probably for 8-9 years. Not how
Yeah.
Tyjae Spears is going to be. But it doesn't worry me a ton. It was just very odd that you didn't go get an AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon would probably make more sense.
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards.
That's who I was thinking was Gus.
Sure.
Or
So,
I mean, if you weren't going to go with Mixon, then Gus would have been the guy that I would have, thought of. So it doesn't seem like it's a good landing spot for me, and it actually just makes me not really want to draft either one of these guys unless they both fall in value wise, startup wise, because it's just you don't know what you're going to get. Like what are you going to get for that offense? I mean, you brought Pollard in, you paid him, so most likely you're thinking Pollard's going to probably automatically get first look. And Tajay again is on the outside looking in, and it's just like cool. But is it though? Like, why would you go out and sign that? This was their first sign. This is the Titans' first signing in the free agency. Like,
I think they looked at the running back landscape and went, okay, maybe we should get somebody. Who knows? Again, this is a whole new offense of group that we don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, it's going to be Tajay. I just lean that he's the better running back. Tony literally showed us last year, you cannot give me the keys to the car. I need to be the passenger in this vehicle. When I had Zeke, everybody wanted me because I could do 7 things really good in a game, and it looked great. So my thinking is Spears is the better running back overall, and Green will rise to the top.
I just don't think this is going to be a team that is going to have a Derrick Henry / whoever split for touches. I think this is going to be very closer to it may even be 55-45. Because I don't think there's going to be one guy that's going to dominate because, like you said, it's a new regimen, it's a whole new regime. And if you take a look at the overall aspects of the move that they made, and bringing in Calvin Ridley as well, it seems like that they want to spread this ball around a little bit more. Maybe this is one of those teams that's finally going to do what I've been preaching or what I've been pining for, and that's using both running backs at the field at the same time. But Callahan didn't do that in Cincinnati, so who the hell knows? Maybe it's a new philosophy for him.
Maybe it really wasn't him.
Maybe it was Zach Taylor. Maybe it was Zach Taylor, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I don't know, but for right now...
I don't disagree, though. I'm not looking to draft either one in a startup early, mid. If they start to fall... I mean, I'm not really looking to draft Tony Pollard. I unless somehow this offense... for some reason can maximize him, which I don't know how you couldn't in Dallas last year when they were throwing the ball over the damn place. So to me, we know what Pollard is, and that's just not that great of a RB1.
Yeah.
He's a good RB2 on a team, which could help your fantasy team in a flex spot here and there. If he gets a couple catches and a touchdown.
Yeah. I right now, I don't think either one of them are even a flex start at this point in time. I think both of them are spot starts right now.
Until we find out more about it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like week 2 that could easily change, or week 3 that could change. But right now, I don't think going into week 1 I'd feel comfortable with it. I mean,
It just depends on what we're getting out of camp and what everybody's seeing. And I mean, we'll see. We'll see. How things go. But
yeah. All right. Let's see. Next running back move, Joe Mixon. We'll talk about Mixon since this is on the heels of Cincinnati and Brian Callahan. He got traded to Houston for a 7th round pick, was going to get cut. They brought in Zach Moss, cheaper option, who was productive for the Colts. We'll talk a little bit more about Moss. I don't know where that's going from, but Oh, well, we'll talk about Moss, but we'll talk more about what that does for the other running backs in Cincinnati, assuming they don't
Honestly,
draft
didn't
somebody.
get that idea. Yeah.
I don't understand it either, but Mixon got traded to Houston. Houston missed out on the Saquon Barkley sweepstakes. They got a cheaper option. They signed him to a deal today. I did see the contract. It was a 3-year contract.
It was 3 years. Yeah, I know that.
I think I read that the last year might be voidable though.
Well, I'm sure it's a 3-year contract to spread things out, most likely. 3-year, $27 million extension.
So
that means it's technically a 4-year deal.
Yeah, because of this year. This year doesn't.
Yeah, he gets 14 or he gets 13 guaranteed in general, which is pretty good. So, it's one of those things where he's probably there next year, unless he just has a terrible season. But because he's still, I think, only 28.
Yeah, I think he came in. I think he came into the league when he was 20, so he was young.
Yeah,
when
he was younger. Yeah.
So, I mean, I love it for Houston. They
27.
they kind of revitalized Devin Singletary's career last year. He had a fairly productive year. Dameon Pierce is pretty much obsolete now at this point in time. So they went out and got a running back. They felt like it was necessary to add to Stroud, and Mixon's reliable. Here's the thing with this, though. I don't think Houston's done adding to that position. I think that they are a prime candidate to take a running back a little bit later in the pool. Whether or not that means that guy ends up being utilized or whatever, it's a different story. But right now, as it looks to me, I think that Mixon's clearly going to be the guy. And
outside of him just playing terrible, I think Houston said we don't want to try and get into a bidding war. Whether I don't know if they thought somebody, maybe Tennessee was going to go, or who they thought they'd be in a bidding war with. But clearly they went, oh, you're going to release him. Here's a 7th round pick for him. We'll take him because we want him, but we don't want to go up against anyone else to get him.
Yeah.
So that clearly means you value what you're getting from him and what you think he can do for your offense.
Correct.
I've always liked Mixon. I've probably been higher on Mixon than you and Eli forever. He's always the guy that. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Mixon's more been. I feel like I'm usually the one drafting him in startups and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He has a little bit of an injury past, but I think in this offense, he's a guy that you could just ride out at this point. If you already own him, I don't think I'd look to trade him unless somebody came to you with like this can't say no deal. It's a guy just ride it out at this point. If you're not contending, try and get what you can get for him, because he will be valuable. I think at least for this season.
Well, I think the other thing that's understated here is Houston's got a good offensive line. You know, the offensive line definitely improved last year. They're only going to improve again this year, and I think it gives a good sensibility with C.J. Stroud back there, who isn't really known for being a running quarterback, but can run. So you still have to honor it, which very could easily help Mixon as well, and might actually prolong Mixon's career, if you think about it too, in a sense, because it means less hits running into the teeth of the defense. I mean, we'll see what happens with Houston. We'll see what this offense looks like, but at this point in time, I like this move. Again, probably a guy that I'm not going to go out of my way to be like my only running back on roster. I think that you can. No. I think though. Similar to the Josh Jacobs situation in Green Bay, you could maybe get away with it for a chunk of the season if he was your RB1 on your team. But you have to hit on a younger guy later in order to be sustainable for a full year. I do not think it's going to be a full year thing, but somewhere I think Mixon's going to rattle off 3-4 games of just really good play.
That's helped where I'm at. The 0 RB or even the 0 RB light. I say light because you draft one semi-early, so you at least have a stud, and then wait. He helps conversations like that.
Yes. And again, we're not I don't advocate for the 0 RB running back strategy. I think that it's better just to get one. But don't
0 RB
overdraft.
late.
But don't overdraft him. Yeah, it's like 0 RB 0, like no calories. Like okay.
No, you beefed up on a little bit, but you're going a little late.
I actually think him, Jacobs, do help that conversation. I think
Jacobs is going to be overdrafted. He can't help that conversation.
Well, that's true. That's true. He is going to be overdrafted. That's a good point. Let's see. Next on the list, I'm sure I'm missing somebody here. So I mean,
we got DeAndre Swift to the Bears.
Oh, DeAndre Swift to the Bears. I was going to say Derrick Henry to Baltimore, because this is another situation where Derrick Henry was left off my list because of his age and third contract, whatever else. Landed in a spot that no longer has J.K. Dobbins, no longer has Gus Edwards, no longer has the insert running back here, no longer has
Justice Hill. I don't think he's even there anymore.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe he is.
I completely forgot Justice Hill existed. So, this is Derrick Henry's backfield.
And the guy that everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to be great," who's injured now doesn't have to be rushed back for Baltimore.
Keaton Mitchell, who I absolutely love, and I think Keaton Mitchell is fantastic. But unless Baltimore does find a way to use both these guys, which once Mitchell is back from the injury,
they will.
Which I think they will too. I actually think it's a dynamic 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I just don't think they'll rush him back punch.
Now. Yes,
they don't have to.
I agree. Yeah, they don't have
to. He's gonna get extra time, I think, to heal for them.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, because I like the signing. I think it could be a good one last season for Henry, but he was terrible last year. He was bad. I know that offense wasn't great, but like he was bad.
I'd like Derrick Henry in Baltimore for probably 3 games. Then I would sell him. The first 3 games of the season, and then sell him, because we've all been waiting for a long time now. I saw the workout video. This dude is an animal. He's a friggin' he's an alien. Okay, Derrick Henry's an alien. His workout routine is like, I can understand why the wheels technically haven't fallen off yet, but at some point in time,
they fell off.
At some point, and he was not very good last year, and maybe that was the signs of what things to come. Maybe going to Baltimore is good because they do use Lamar Jackson more in the run game. So it could take the pressure off of him, which could open things up even more for Henry, which could prolong his career. I worry about wear and tear from a certain point of the season to the end of the season. When are we going to start seeing him popping up on the hamstring? May not play. Questionable, with a knee, may not play. Questionable with a calf strain, might miss 2 games. You know what I mean? Like
he
that's
will have a much better season than he had last year, just because the offense is more open than what Tennessee was. But just as we talked about with Philly and the offensive line, Baltimore, I believe, has traded an offensive lineman, let a free agent offensive lineman go. Like I don't know that it's gotten better.
That's a good point.
I think it's gotten pretty bad. So what they do over the next couple months will be interesting, because Derrick Henry, for how great he is and how big he is, if he can't get his momentum going, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
For a guy his size who should run people over, if he doesn't have a bit of a lane and can get his steam going, you're stopping him at the line. And that's what made last year difficult to watch, because the team wasn't good. So you could stop him at the line, but he's not running people over like he should be. Sure, he could stiff arm people that are, half his size because they're cornerbacks and he's a beast. But when he goes up against the big boys, he loses. So
and the other thing is too, is this is a marriage that I think so many people wanted to see. Right? People were talking about Baltimore and Derrick Henry years ago, right?
Yep.
It could be one of those situations where the perception is more perfect than what the actual outcome is. It's like Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. right?
Will he
The
have
perception.
some long runs? Yes, he will have some long runs. Will he be putting up 2,000 yards? No, he will not be putting up 2,000
Yeah,
yards.
so that's very possible too, and Keaton Mitchell will obviously play a role in it when he comes back from injury as well. So in my honest opinion, if you wanted to go look back at the zero RB strategy, I honestly don't even think I would be okay or comfortable taking Derrick Henry as my lead guy. To be honest with you,
No.
I honestly feel like if you have Derrick Henry and you get 3 good games out of him, trade him to a contender if you're not contending. And if you are contending, still trade his ass to another contender. Get something back in it.
Depending what you can get for him.
I'm telling you
don't
guys.
trade him for nothing, but yeah. Get
I
something.
mean, obviously you want to trade it for something, but I'm telling you guys that like when this season starts and you hit week 3, week 4, he has 3 good weeks out of the first 4 weeks. Make a move, because by the time that we get to week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're going to start seeing these little nicks, and they're going to pile up, and he's going to miss a week here, and he's not going to be effective here. So that's just my opinion on that. So where I am with Derrick Henry, I think the perception is going to be better than the actual outcome, personally. So.
I mean, maybe he's Mark Ingram a few years ago, because he did have a really good year his first year with Baltimore.
He did.
He had 10 touchdowns. So
this is true too.
Yeah, if Derrick Henry pulling that, because Ingram only had 1,000 yards this season, but he had 10 touchdowns. He ended up as the RB 11 in PPR. So that's an outcome possible for Henry.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it was 1 year.
Right. I mean, and it's very the Baltimore Ravens have been known to take running backs from second, third teams and get a year or two solid out of them and then move on. I mean, well, I'm thinking Jamal Lewis. No, that was Cleveland. Never mind. Reverse that. Cleveland got
I think he was pretty young with Baltimore.
Cleveland got 2 years out of Jamal Lewis. So, DeAndre Swift. Let's talk about him. You mentioned it. Chicago. Honestly, great player. I worry about the system, that offensive system, just because they didn't really use their running backs all that much last year that were really any relevancy. I mean, they also only had Khalil Herbert and Dante Foreman on the squad. But Herbert had a good year the year before, and I think it was Eberflus's first year. I think
he had good games when he was injured, so there was like the possibility of him, I think, was more than what the outcome really was. Yeah. So that's the thing, and that's I think the Bears running backs for years now.
Yeah,
the possibility is higher than the outcome.
Likely a rookie quarterback, and Caleb Williams. So that's going to be a long season in general, anyways. DJ Moore's there. Did they got another wide receiver? Didn't they? Did they bring in a receiver? No. Is it just DJ Moore? Because Darnell Mooney's gone.
Mooney's gone.
Did they bring somebody in? I don't think they brought anybody in, did they?
Unless it was from a trade, no.
So they're likely to probably use pick not. They're likely to probably use pick 9 on a wide receiver then. So a rookie wide receiver too. They did sign Gerald Everett. They did sign Gerald Everett, so Everett does give them a little bit of a pass catching ability with Cole Kmet. Well, I mean, yeah, but you can use 2 tight ends in this system because you're going to have to. I mean, let's be honest. You're going to have to use Everett as your wide receiver 3. There is nobody else on that roster that's worth.
You mean your wide receiver 2?
Well, right now you're wide receiver 2, yes, but
I mean, until they draft the guy, we don't assume they draft the guy.
So DeAndre Swift is looks like it may be a long season.
I mean, I think he fits well because we saw him with Jalen Hurts, and a running style I think is what Swift works better with, and that's why it didn't work as well in Detroit, because that style wasn't. I mean, even though Jahmyr Gibbs had a good season, the teams weren't the same then. You didn't have wide receivers that could open up lanes for DeAndre Swift. He got drafted too soon in Detroit.
Yeah.
So I think that works well in his favor. It's just like you said, it's a question of what this offense really is. And I know they made some moves on the offensive line, I think, in the free agency, and I think they might have traded for somebody.
They just made a really good signing with the center from the Rams. They brought him on board. They signed him today.
But trying to build your offensive line through free agency, we've seen a lot of times doesn't work that well.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. It's a risk.
So to say, okay, well, that offense is so much better now that let's go get a wide receiver at 9. I mean, you need one. So whatever you decide, and this is probably the better draft. And then maybe if you want to say, hey, okay, next year we'll focus. But I mean, look at what Detroit did. They went offensive line. We're going to build that way, and then we'll go get our pieces otherwise. And look how that worked out.
Well,
Chicago's taking a different path.
The thing is with Chicago is they don't have their second round pick, and they only have 5 picks in this draft. 2 of them come in the first 9. So they only have
next year.
Well, right,
Next
but I'm just saying though, based upon so DeAndre Swift's a great player, and we have noted here numerous times at Dynasty Academy that bad teams can produce good fantasy players. Absolutely, 100%. Blake Bortles, for instance. So, well, did I say great players? Sorry, I meant bad teams can produce great fantasy players. Oh yeah, Blake Bortles. Okay, so that works. Anyways, DeAndre Swift very well could produce in this offense, primarily because they don't have the pieces to trust. They're going to rely on him. The problem with Swift is because of his injury history. Is it going to be too much for him to stay durable over the course of the 17 game, maybe 18 game season? Like
with a bad, like he had a really good season with Philly last year.
Yeah,
and they had an amazing offensive line.
Yeah,
they're one of the best ones. So it on paper, you look at it and you go, "Oh, this is really good." Swift, Fields, even Caleb Williams, but when you really dig into it, I don't know how good it's going to be. Because by the time that team is ready to be good, I don't think he'll be there.
Right.
So
I would rather take Swift as my RB2 in this situation. I would not rely on him being my RB1 at all. If you're going to draft him at all, I mean, who knows where he's going to go?
I don't know if I'd take him as my 2 at this point.
I think I would
how bad that offense could be.
I think I would take him as my 2 if I landed a guy that I like at 1. But it also depends on where he goes, because there are some people that may look at him and go, "Oh, he's the only running back in Chicago. Let's go ahead and just draft him because he's going to be the guy."
See,
so
I don't think that though, because I think Roschon Johnson is a good running back. So I think it'll be a 2-headed monster.
It's very possibly could be for sure. But I'm not overdrafting Swift. He's a guy that I want value on more than anything. Let's see. Austin Eckler to Washington. Had
2-year, $8 million deal. That surprised me.
Well, I mean, it's a great, but he's 30 years old. I mean, and he's coming off a down year though from last year too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know if that was his fault or the Kellen Moore system. He's going to a Cliff Kingsbury system where he doesn't have to be relied as the guy because Brian Robinson is still there, and he can replace the Antonio Gibson. And I think he's more reliable than Antonio Gibson because 100%. Gibson had drops and fumbles, and was injured.
He was
too.
a guy trying to learn a position. Honestly,
yeah.
Antonio Gibson was a tweener position player.
Yeah,
all even through college. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, probably better in pass protection. Obviously, clearly a much better pass catcher.
Yeah,
just he's done it. I was just such a low amount was very surprising seeing that. And I know Antonio Gibson is so much younger, but he got. I guess $12 million over 3 years, but still a 3-year deal. Compared to 2 at 8. Aaron Jones got 1 for 7. He almost got the same deal for way more money.
But again, Eckler's age is going to play a factor into that.
Same age as Aaron Jones.
So, yeah, but Aaron Jones, we already know that Minnesota doesn't know what they're doing clearly. So
I think it's a good move for.
I think it is too. I think it's a great move for Washington. I think it also takes pressure off of Brian Robinson to have to do it all. And I think that it's also going to take the pressure off of our rookie quarterback, whoever it is, whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May. It's going to take the pressure off of him because he's going to have a safety outlet who's reliable and a guy who's been there on third down who can actually pass protect for you as well too, because I think Gibson struggled a lot there too. And Brian Robinson has shown to be effective, not a great running back, but effective. And I think that will also take the pressure off of the rookie quarterback too. And who knows what happens with the wide receiver position, but we have two solid wide receivers in McLaurin and Dotson. I wouldn't be surprised if we took one with one of our 2 picks in the second round. But that's just where we're at with Washington. And I, as far as a fantasy standpoint is good. I would buy Eckler at a low. If you can get him cheap, I would buy him.
I would prefer to Eckler over guys like Devin Singletary, guys like Zach Moss, who went to new teams, seem like maybe they are their starter for those teams. But I envision Eckler probably catching a lot of passes because Washington doesn't really have the tight end that's usually the rookie quarterback safety net. I think Eckler is going to be that kind of guy for a rookie. So I think he's a sneaky buy low to be a possible RB2 for your team if you kind of really did punt running back and maybe went real young and don't really have the reliable guy yet that you can rely a little bit more on. We'll see, but I think that's what he could be.
And that's if you build your team to win now, in a sense. If it's a dynasty, from a dynasty perspective, and you think you can contend, or you're kind of like the borderline team and you can get him to be a flex spot guy for you, take it. I would say take the deal for sure and run with it. You're not going to be able to sell him, so make sure that if you do make that trade, you realize you're stuck with him for the next 1 to 2 years.
We'll say 1 year at this point.
Yeah, at this point. So, I mean, I think it's a good buy low option. We'll see what happens with the Cliff Kingsbury offense too. I mean, that's going to be a question as well as will it?
I mean,
will it
who's
match?
the quarterback
But
at this point?
Right,
the quarterback?
That too.
Big question number 1.
Yeah. So, but I do like it for Washington. I like it for Eckler as far as the fantasy standpoint is concerned for at least a year or two. If you can get him on a buy low, then do it. You mentioned Zach Moss in Cincinnati. I don't want to spend a lot of time on him because let's be honest, it's Zach Moss. I think Chase Brown's going to be the starter there. I don't think Cincinnati's going to bring somebody in. I think Moss is taking the P. Ryan spot.
I don't disagree. I just don't understand with where your team is at, where your team should be. You looked at, and I understand you only signed him for 2 years, $8 million total. So he was a much smaller cap hit than Joe Mixon. I get that.
Yep.
But you have to do something else, because if Chase Brown and Zach Moss are going to be your 2 guys going into the season, you might as well just pack it up, go home, because
you don't have faith in Chase Brown?
No, I do not.
Oh,
not to be a lead guy on a contending team.
But this is where I'm okay with the Zach Moss signing, though, because you don't have to put that pressure on Chase Brown. And you saw what Zach Moss did when Jonathan Taylor wasn't playing with the Colts. Now, granted, different team, I understand. But I'm just saying.
I saw also what he did with the Buffalo Bills.
Well, yeah, but that's
crap years. So.
and don't get me wrong, I'm not a Zach Moss guy, but I think that's why he was signed. You give the reins to Chase Brown in hopes that if he has a bad day, Zach Moss can pick it up. Basically,
I don't know.
That's the only thing
I feel like you.
I'm not taking either one of those guys. I don't think they're going to bring anybody in. I think that's who they're going to roll with this year.
I'm going to draft somebody.
I don't think they will. I think the Giants
will either. But.
I think the Giants will, unless they're sold on Eric Gray, because Devin Singletary is not going to be it. So
I mean, the Giants are an interesting one. Singletary isn't the guy, but I also don't. I think this team is looking at itself, going, "Okay, we really need to rebuild this thing. We messed up."
I would say that, but then they traded for Brian Burns and gave him a massive contract.
Yeah, he's only 26, though. I mean, and for a defensive end,
that's fine. But what was it? With a 4-year deal?
Who knows? But you just extend the. I don't mind that, because when you're looking at a rebuild, you shouldn't be looking too far. If you're rebuilding for that long, you're doing it wrong.
Well, right.
You
but
can't
that's what I mean.
Turn a roster over in about a year you're going to be fired anyway. So
yeah, but the Daniel Jones contract is really what's stopping this. Is really what's stopping this team from becoming anything, and that's primarily the reason why the Brian Burns contract. Like, you know me, edge to me is the second most important position in football. So when you have the Brian Burns contract, but that Daniel Jones contract really hurts. Eric Gray is on a rookie contract for another 2 years. I mean, Devin Singletary came in for fairly cheap, but he's not going to be the guy. Like, do you take somebody? And to me, I think the Giants take somebody.
yeah,
I would like to see Eric Gray
draft,
get the chance, to be honest with you, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, in this draft, you don't have to do it probably super high and still get a solid guy. That's the difference in this draft. You
Yeah,
don't. You can wait on a.
Maybe they'll take one at 6.
Oh, I mean, they took Saquon at 2. So. So they have a bit of an out with Daniel Jones next year. It's a bad dead cap hit, but it's not as bad as it would have been this season. And I think that's why they're keeping him for this year. The dead cap is only $22 million. I say only, but we see with where
it's not $71 million.
It is not. So
shout out to Denver.
Shout out to them. Paying Russ to go play with Pittsburgh. So
yep.
I'm starting to lean they might draft a quarterback. It's going to be wide receiver quarterback, I think, for them.
Supposedly they were one of the more active teams trying to move up to get themselves a quarterback. So it is very, very possible for sure. Look, as far as the running back side of things is concerned, though, I'm not touching Singletary. And if they don't draft a running back, the guy that I want is Eric Gray. Plain and simple. So,
but I don't think I want anybody.
But I'm not.
I'm already have Eric Gray, or I can go pick him up off of waivers at this point.
Right. It's not a guy that, I mean, in a startup draft, if you can get him like late round, take him. But I would just avoid it altogether. Like that whole situation's kind of
there's no. It's almost as bad as New England with offensive weapons. You have Waller, and and maybe Jalen Hyatt. Maybe we still haven't seen.
I like Jalen Hyatt.
I do too. We haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
So maybe Jalen Hyatt.
Well, you mentioned New
maybe
England.
Waller is who knows?
Yeah, that's true too. And Waller did say he was contemplating retirement 2 years ago. So that's something that's very hard to get around. So you mentioned New England, Antonio Gibson in New England.
Yes.
I mean, I personally like this. I think that this is a good chance for Gibson to rebound in an Alex Van Pelt offense who showed that running backs are a driving force for his offense. And Ramondre Stevenson's there. I think that this could be a good marriage between all three, Alex Van Pelt, Ramondre Stevenson, and Antonio Gibson. I think it could very possibly be. Quarterback is obviously going to be the question mark. Again, it's the same thing that we talked about with a lot of other teams. Who's going to play quarterback? Now, whether this is Jaden Daniels or Drake May or JJ McCarthy, he's yet to be seen. This is where the quarterback position.
None of the above.
What? Who do you think is going to be? Who you think they're? You don't think they're taking somebody at 3? I think they are. Nope. I think they're taking somebody at 3.
Nope. I think they're gonna draft either Marvin.
The Mac Jones trade told me 100% everything I needed to know.
I think they're going.
They're not waiting on a second round guy. There's nobody in the second round that is going to make you.
Nope. They're going to draft.
You think they're going to go with Bailey Zappi?
Nope. They're going to draft Marvin Harrison or trade out of that spot to get more picks, knowing this team is trash all around it, and they will be playing for the number 1 pick next year, and they'll roll with Jacoby Brissett as the starter.
Well, maybe doubtful though. I don't see it because I think the quarterback class next year is too many question marks. So,
but somebody always usually rises at least up,
and it will probably be Drew Aller. But I mean, you take a look at that class next year, and you look at the class this year. and you're staring at a guy like Jaden Daniels at 3, I would, if he's there, I would be shocked. The only way I could see that happening is if it's Jaden that goes to Washington at 2, because I don't know if New England wants Drake May, because I don't think it fits what they want. I don't think it fits what they want.
You look at the team and it's just devoid of talent all around.
I mean, missing out on Calvin Ridley was obviously a huge miss too. So I mean,
did they go after him?
Yeah, they went. He was like that. He was tied to New England for friggin' pretty much all offseason. Yeah,
I didn't see that. I saw Jacksonville was trying to make a push for Calvin to come back, and then Tennessee swooped in and stole him.
New England made an offer. New England was the first team to make an offer to him.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. They were sitting on him, but
so he was smart, knowing he's 30-some years old, and not go there because you literally it's DeAndre Hopkins. Why would you go to Tennessee last year? Seeing that team, it made no sense. So at least Calvin's smart in that sense. I mean, I'm not sure going to Tennessee was the right move for him either, but at least that team looks a little bit better than what's going on up in New England.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very possible that they take Marvin Harrison Jr. there for sure. I mean, I think they're going to take a quarterback because the NFL has this narrative that the quarterback is the most important position in football, and therefore they are going to need to find their guy, and you build around the quarterback, not vice versa, which I think has been disproven numerous times, but people still believe it. That's the only reason why I think that they're going to draft a quarterback, and Arizona clearly thinks they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 with everything that they've made for moves, because right now Michael Wilson is their wide receiver 1, and there's nobody behind him. So,
I mean,
literally, Mike Wilson's literally the only wide receiver they have. On Greg Dortch might still be there.
Sitting there going, we'll probably get Harrison or Neighbors, and we're fine with that.
Yeah, and that's
if Rome's their guy over Neighbors, which some people, any of the 3, I don't think you can look at and go, man, that was a terrible pick.
That's true. That's true.
Marvin isn't that far ahead of the other 2 that I'd go, man, you really missed on this guy. Yeah.
I will tell you, if New England doesn't take a quarterback at 3, the Giants are going to be licking their chops at 6. So,
yeah,
because the Chargers ain't taking one at 5. So,
no, and I mean, and Arizona isn't at 4.
Right, and Arizona's not at 4, so the Giants could sit there at 6, and they have the most valuable pick in football at that point in time. So,
well, but the problem then becomes is, what do some of those teams offer LA? I don't think Arizona moves out because they're getting a wide receiver and they're staying there to get that wide receiver.
I don't think they're taking the chance necessarily though either.
LA can go so many different directions.
I think they could move out.
Moving back makes a lot more sense for them than it does Arizona.
Yeah, we'll get to the draft special before. Well, we got a little off topic here. Running backs. Speaking of the Chargers, actually, while we were talking about Gus Edwards.
The bowling ball.
Hey, I will say is Gus Edwards is not a guy that I want to rely on as a 1 or 2.
No.
He's a guy that I would like on my roster though. And I feel like that the Chargers brought him in because even if they do draft Blake Corum, which a lot of people seem to think, if they do draft Blake Corum, it gives them 2 running backs with similar skill sets, and it gives them 2 running backs where they don't have to automatically
rely on
Blake Corum. Right, exactly. They don't have to rely on him right away because Gus has been there as a veteran, has a very similar skill set, and is fairly productive. Right, he's not a guy who's going to wow you, but he's a fairly productive running back. So I do like this. He's a guy that I would. Yeah, he's a safe play. He's a guy I would like on my roster. He's not a guy that I want as my 1 or 2 though. So if you do want to go get a guy like Gus Edwards, I think it's a cheap option for you to buy and give yourself an opportunity and chance. From a dynasty perspective, you're realistically looking at 1 year, and then his second year he's going to be relegated to that role play. Like he's going to be the 1B instead of the 1A, basically.
If he's still there, I mean, this could just be bring him in this year till we.
Was it a 2-year deal though?
2 years, $6.5 million.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's nothing crazy.
It's not really starter money. It's not really starter.
No. It's one of those things you bring him in because he's solid. If you have to rely on him, you can. He did it just fine with Baltimore.
I always base it on the fact that if he has a good year as the 1A, then you bring him back to have that safety net the following
Maybe.
year.
It just depends on what you can
as the
get for
one
next
B.
year, what you drafted,
Right.
who's going to be a free agent. You trade. It just you wait and see. But again, it's not. You don't go out of your way to get him. You don't do anything. But when you're sitting there in round 18 and you're looking at running back landscape and you're looking at Ahmed for Miami, draft best elsewhere instead.
Yeah. And Salvin Ahmed resigned in Miami. I don't care. Let's see.
He's good. He's going to be good one game when everybody else is hurt in that game.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Who? Anybody else I'm missing here? I think that's pretty much everybody, huh? Almost everybody. Did I miss a big one? I didn't miss a big one. No, everything's all.
Oh, I mean, you did think Nyheim Hines was a huge signing for the Browns.
That's called sarcasm, Mark.
I know. No, that's pretty much everybody.
That's it.
The rest
Yeah,
are
okay.
just fluff at the bottom. Yep, Dearness Johnson goes back. Chase Edmonds goes back. Ahmed goes back. Abdullah goes back. I'll just roster guys for those teams because it's running back positions. You have to have depth. So,
and for everybody out there listening, Dynasty Academy is where we mention people that are irrelevant.
I mean, they're irrelevant until
it's
they're
waiver
relevant.
wire fodder. It's waiver wire fodder.
Yes,
those are guys that you pick up when your injury gets hurt, your player gets hurt. You know?
Right. So in week 13, when you're staring down no running back to your team, and
but that's what we have. That's what we have the Dynasty Academy. That's what we have the Dynasty Academy for, though. Later in the year, Mark, not right now.
Those are the only guys we didn't talk about that all re-signed with the team. They didn't go anywhere else. They re-signed with their team. So they're depth for that team. That's what they are.
How many running backs in total switch teams? You have the list right there, don't you? Yeah, what is it, like 12? Of the relevancy ones. Like, don't give me Nyheim Hines. I don't care. 12-ish.
So technically, I think it would be 13 because Joe Mixon isn't listed here because he wasn't a free agent, but he was traded.
Right, because he was a trade. So Joe Mixon.
So 13.
13, yeah. Okay, yeah. So 13.
Oh, sorry. We'll say 12. I included DJ Dallas because he was up a little bit higher in this list.
Oh. Okay.
But granted, he did go to the Cardinals.
Yeah, he went to Arizona. James Conner's still there. So
but a guy you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So,
and he was fairly. I wouldn't count him on that list. I wouldn't count him on that list, though.
I mean, I don't think he's that far off of Antonio Gibson.
DJ Dallas?
I mean, Antonio Gibson went to the Patriots.
Yes, he went to the Patriots. The Patriots have nobody. I know. I get.
They have Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson at this point,
and Bailey Zappi.
I don't even know if he's going to be on the team.
Juju Smith-Schuster and Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Juju's there. Hunter's still there?
I think so. Yeah. Didn't they re-sign him? I think they extended him.
Did they?
I think so.
I can tell you.
He's their wide receiver 1.
He is their offense. You're right. He did re-sign him, a 3-year deal. Totally. I don't even think the Twitter X-verse even talked about that, to be honest with you.
I mean, why would you?
Oh, Austin Hooper went to the Patriots. I saw that. I totally never saw Hunter Henry, but I did see the Austin.
It's funny. I saw the Hunter Henry one. I did not see Austin Hooper went there. I didn't even realize Austin Hooper was still in the league. So,
which is such a Patriots thing to do. Just load up on as many tight ends to do nothing with them.
Oh, Bill Belichick, still the GM over there. Nice to know. All right. I think that's it. I think we just stuck with the running backs tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about the wide receivers and quarterbacks next week.
We'll see how many more wide receivers go. I mean,
that's true. Tyler Boyd's still a free agent, and there's a bunch of other ones that are still free agents. So we'll see what happens with the wide receivers.
But you talk about 12 to 13 running backs that change teams. Wide receiver, you had 4 relevant ones.
Right. Only. Yeah.
And then you had 3 that stayed with their team.
Yep.
Well, we'll see about one, T. Higgins, what happens with him, but he's still at least with. But Mike Evans goes back, Pittman goes back, and then the rest. You want to talk about real relevant? Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, Matt Collins.
Well, I will say Kendrick Bourne is a little more relevant than most of those other guys because Bourne is a good wide receiver. Now, again, New England is void of talent.
Throwing on the ball.
I mean, probably Kyle Duggar, but that's
Hey.
beside the point.
Jalen Reagor went back to the Patriots too, so they are.
There you go. There's an irrelevant.
I did miss that Noah Brown went back to the Texans.
Yes, he did re-up with the Texans.
1 year. So
probably a camp cut if they draft a wide receiver.
Yeah, if they do, I don't know if they will. They're pretty young there already, so they might roll with what they gotten.
But it also depends on Xavier Hutchinson too, who I'd like,
and John Mechie,
and Mechie too. Yeah, so I mean, who I like, or I liked.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really like him. He was just kind of there, but they drafted him pretty high.
Sort of.
So he was a second-round pick, right?
No, I don't think so.
Mechie?
Yeah, I don't think he was a second-round pick.
No.
No, I was at fourth round.
Was he? Was he that low?
I thought so.
Watch it be like in the third. You thought fourth, I thought second, so he'll be like in the third.
Oh no, you were right. He was in the second round.
Yeah, I thought so.
So high second round. He was also drafted in the CFL by the BC Lions in the 7th round of the 2022 CFL draft. On top of
that. See, there it is. So if this doesn't work out, he can go north. All right. Yeah, so that's going to do it for us here tonight. I don't think I have anything else. You got anything else?
No.
Any other running backs?
No.
Well, hey.
Wild free agency, though. I was very, very surprised about
for sure
how many people changed rival teams.
Yeah. At a bunch of positions, for that matter.
Patrick Queen went to Pittsburgh. From Baltimore.
Yep. I get it. All right. Saquon Barkley from the Giants to the Eagles. All right. That's going to do it for us here next week. Class is no longer in session. This is Dynasty Academy here on the Shady Sports Network. If you're still listening to us and still with us after this running back special, free agent special, head over to YouTube, hit that like button, hit the little subscribe button, get the little dingy thingamajiggy so that way you get all the notifications for Shady Sports. We cover everything from arena and indoor football to European football to Mexican football to more north of the border football to the NFL. We cover it all. UFL here. Anything football basically relevant, we cover it, except for like the X League and stuff like that. But that's the Shady Sports Network. Thank you again to Sam for giving us a platform. Dynasty Academy for Mark Ox. I'm Michael Washington. Have a good night.